You ever notice how in politics the word leadership sometimes just means I've been here a long time, so everyone hush and let me talk? Yeah, that energy. And every now and then someone walks in and says, actually, no, they don't wait their turn. They don't whisper their ideas. They don't bow to the party hierarchy like it's the DMV line from 1989. They look at the establishment, even when it's wearing their same party button, and they say, if you're not fighting hard enough for the people who live here, maybe you shouldn't be holding the seat. That's not disrespect. That's democracy with its sleeves rolled up. Tonight, we're talking to someone who stepped into a race and challenged a sitting party whip. New voice, new vision, no coronations, no automatic promotions. Because in Indiana and in every state, the seat belongs to the people, not the politician who's been warming it longest. And if that makes the establishment folks sweat just a little, good. Sweat builds character. Tonight on Hold 'em Accountable, we're joined by Sarah Shydale, a Democratic candidate for Indiana's House District 97, who is challenging long-term incumbent and current Democratic whip in the State House, Justin Moed. Sarah has stepped into the race looking to inject new energy into the Democratic base on Indianapolis's west and south sides, going toe-to-toe with Moed, who has served the district since 2013 and serves as the minority whip in the Indiana House of Representatives. All right, Sarah, thank you for being here. You stepped into a race where the easy move would have been to wait your turn, but you chose to challenge the status quo and offer the voters a choice. That takes conviction, that takes courage, and most importantly, that takes a belief that Hoosiers deserve more than automatic incumbency and quiet party hierarchy. So tonight, I want to dig into what your vision really means for the people of District 97. Folks who are raising families, running small businesses, paying taxes, and trying to build a future right here in Indianapolis. So let's move from headlines to substance. Real issues, real stakes, real answers for real people. So, Sarah, let's get into it. District 97 includes neighborhoods where rent and housing costs are rising fast. What is your plan to make housing more affordable for working families and ensure long-term residents aren't pushed out?
Well, my first immediate thought for housing costs are rent control. For me, as someone who lives in an apartment and has for the last several years, rent is getting completely out of control. I know I live in a more expensive part of downtown, but I pay around $1,400 a month for the privilege of living here in a one-bedroom apartment, and that is simply inexcusable. It's insane. I have been a state employee for 4 years now, and I make $47,000 a year. That rent payment takes one entire paycheck out of my monthly allowances. So it's that is just too high. So my thinking is that we need rent control. We need I was thinking about how to go about managing this, and my immediate thought was a per living area um, pricing structure. So if you have a studio apartment, that should cost you no more than $500 a month, and that is with utilities included. Because utilities should not be something extra you should be made to pay extra for, and it's because you can't live without it. It doesn't matter how good or bad or a month you have. You need water and you need heat. So and the way that these utility companies are running things is absolutely out of this world too. So your entire rent, including like for me, my water and trash services are included, and I feel like that should cost a one-bedroom apartment no more than $1,000 a month for everything included, even lights if possible, because anything higher is just ludicrous, especially with today's stagnating wages. It feels like it's impossible to get ahead because you're constantly having to pay almost your entire monthly wage just for the privilege of living. And of course, for those who don't rent and who do actually own houses, really what needs to happen most is we need to get the interest rates for mortgages down, because I've been trying to get into a house for several years now, and the interest rate is somewhere around what, 7% now, which is it's insanity. There's no other way of saying it. So, of course, I don't have a defined solution for that, but I'm absolutely going to champion more progressive policies when it comes to things that will affect taxes, property taxes, and mortgage rates specifically.
We've seen homeowners, especially seniors living on fixed incomes, squeezed by rising property taxes. How will you protect them while still funding essential services?
Well, I think the best way to tackle this is to question the greed inherent in taxing people that are already stretched to their limits. What I think needs to happen is I think we need to tax the billionaires, tax the rich guys that are really the ones that are holding all the cards, so to speak. Because like you can own a house and still be house poor because even though you have a house, and that is quite a bit of equity and whatnot, you may not have very much actual funds because of monthly payments and whatnot. So I think what we really need to do is specifically make legislation that will lower property taxes for the working poor and those on the poverty line, and legislation that will appropriately tax um, people that own very large properties and that pull in a lot of money but don't pay their fair share.
Public safety is more than leasing. It's about trust, community investment, people feeling safe where they live. How do we build safer neighborhoods while improving trust between law enforcement and the residents?
That one's a toughie, unfortunately, because part of the problem with reestablishing trust in police is that it's kind of a self-inflicted issue when it comes to the police because not only have they not done very much to improve their overall look with how current events are going, as I'm sure you're aware, but also the problem is inherent in a whole nother factor because oftentimes when people have clashes with police, it's not out of specifically wanting the clash with the police. It's because people are driven to do things because they don't have enough to make ends meet. For instance, um, people have clashes with police because they need more money and they need more food, and they sometimes have to go to great lengths to go and get those things. And the fact um, that we can't, as a state that has a GDP in the billions, uh, actually manage to provide for the working poor and whatnot, it's contributing to the whole problem, especially when you have such things as food deserts and other great gaps in service that stretch people to the breaking point, which just makes the clashes with police when they have them all the more terrible. And back to the flip side on the actual police, it's that it's something that it's hard to legislate away because the police need to take initiative to know that they need to improve their own public image by rooting out the corruption inherent in their own system. So something that I think would be good to do would be to put more pressure on police unions, if applicable, and really try and strive to not essentially defund the police, but try to make it so that they have more of a incentive to do good work and not just punching those that are already down.
You mentioned food deserts in your district. I and my wife used to live within your district in the Holy Cross area. And I can attest, yes, it is very much a food desert in the inner city part. Um, we moved out right before the Marsh, now Kroger, went in downtown. Closest place that we had was in Twin Air, which was a horrible area to go shopping. What would you do to try to improve the food deserts within your district?
Not only do we need to incentivize more, what's the word? Mixed growth, specifically through mixed zoning. I feel like I was going to bring this up later, but mixed zoning is very near and dear to my heart because it's something that we're dearly lacking in the city overall. Because, for instance, there's two grocery stores within the greater downtown area, at least that I know of, and something part of the problem is that it's you have one big grocery store, then that'll be it for miles around, right? What we really need are smaller local businesses that can provide basic groceries that aren't in really far out areas, such as, like, say you have a radius of apartment buildings or a neighborhood. You should have to have a grocery store within a certain distance, at least walking distance of that radius, because especially in the more western parts of the district, people are much more poor. They have less money for gas, and they may have less reliable cars. Transit is a big problem right now, so they may not be able to get to the big grocery store that's 15, 20 miles away. So what we need to do is start putting these grocery stores on people's doorsteps, especially if it would help create more local business and not handing the reins to big corporations that buy out smaller grocery stores and then leave the area. I also had an idea that we need to, I don't want to say regulate, but we really need to specify more what food banks can can give away, because I actually had a recent interaction with people about this on Reddit, and it's that oftentimes the quality and the amount of actual food that food banks can give to people is oftentimes of greatly varying quantity and greatly varying quality as well, such as random dry goods and cans of vegetables that are past the expiration dates, and half rotted produce, and things that don't gel together and that don't make a complete meal, but rather make up extras that you need to buy other things in order to complete. So we need to start working on an initiative to address these issues and get more basic staples into people's homes.
especially with what's currently happening with SNAP benefits.
Oh yeah, and with how flooded the food banks are with people that don't have the money for food otherwise, and this isn't a situation that's getting better on its own, and the quality and the quantity of things that they can give out is just going to go down, and and it's not what people need. People need real healthy food and not these like cast-offs, essentially.
And when you are talking about the markets within like a certain radius, I think the listeners and the viewers can think about the New York City bodega system, where
Exactly.
on corners, intersection corners, there's little tiny stores inside of a corner building. And it has fresh produce, it has someone there making sandwiches. It becomes a kind of gathering area for the local community and could be a huge boon to a certain area for a community sense.
Exactly, because doing something like that creates security, because you may still have trouble affording food, and that's a whole nother issue, but at least the access is so much easier. You don't have to worry about trying to cross dozens of miles just to access basic supplies.
Your district has incredible entrepreneurs and local creators. What steps would you take to support small businesses and attract good paying jobs right here at home?
Well, that goes back to my ideas of mixed use zoning, and specifically trying to create incentives in order to help business, especially small business, flourish. Because oftentimes I've thought about like getting in business myself. I've had ideas um that I have not been able to even workshop because of the sheer impossibility of say affording a space and startup costs and things of that nature that are so out of reach by itself that the entire goal feels in danger, right? So um we need I thought it might be a good idea, and this is my uninformed opinion, is that it may be a good idea to offer government-backed startup loans with low interest rates that people can tap into, that can help them jumpstart a business for themselves. And especially if we implement mixed use zoning, we can open up more avenues. So leases aren't quite as scarce as they should be, and buildings that are currently sitting derelict could actually get more use out of, which could also in turn hopefully revitalize communities. Because there's nothing worse than seeing a bricked up building that's been sitting there for years, and no one can use it because it's being sat on, and zoning regulations are preventing it from being used and things of that nature. Also, on the more employee-oriented side, um, I had the idea, and this is very ambitious, that what really needs to exist is a certain type of general union that employees can um, can join that would be backed by the accountability of the state. Because I've worked some jobs that did not treat me as well as they should have, and I've had absolutely no recourse because this is a very worker unfriendly state. And it kind of goes both ways, because if a place of business doesn't respect its workers, then usually its workers won't respect the customers because they don't feel like they have enough of a reason to, especially if they're not being paid their fair wage, which a fair wage in this state is far from what the minimum wage is. Minimum wage has been raised in, I don't even know how long now. It's still 7.25. It was 7.25 when I first started working at 16, and it hasn't changed a cent. And you can't live on that here. You definitely can't support a family, and you definitely can't support yourself. That is also another big thing that needs to be changed in order to actually allow money to circulate through our local businesses. That is inexcusable. That And really, wages need to go up across the board, but minimum wage especially, because no one can live on that. No one, not a single state in the union can support a single person on that wage, not comfortably. And it really needs to be a human right that that a job should be able to afford you a basic living situation that's mostly stress free. I mean, I feel like that's a more radical opinion than I feel like it has any right to be, at least in this political climate.
Parents in District 97 want strong public schools they can rely on and teachers who feel valued. How do you ensure our public schools get the support and respect they deserve, especially IPS?
Well, in my opinion, we really need to stop legislating what teachers teach. Teachers are the experts here. Most of them have gone on to get advanced degrees and are usually well, yeah, well enough respected in their field. And the government has no right to legislate away what the teachers are teaching. And that's just a basic fact, especially with how consumed with censorship some groups appear to be nowadays, even when that flies in the face of the obvious truth and hiding things that don't need to be hidden. Um, and in terms of funding, I firmly believe that we went the wrong direction when it came to No Child Left Behind, because if I'm not mistaken, that was when we really started teaching to the test. And we got that backwards in the way that we rewarded schools that were doing the best with the most money. And that's, to me, that's backwards. Because if a school isn't doing well, then they probably need more funding. So if instead of teaching to the top and rewarding only the top, we really need to give more attention and more money to those on the bottom. Because if we don't give them the money for supplies and facility upkeep and staff, um, and to keep staff on, then there's no way we can win that battle, because we're not giving them an even ground to stand on, which is patently ludicrous in my mind. Of course, I'm talking from a very privileged perspective. I went to Soundgrove High School, which is arguably one of the most well-funded public schools in the state, and that's mainly because of a private benefactor in Ray Skillman. But schools shouldn't need Ray Skillman to save them. I mean, again, a more an apparently more radical stance than it has any right to be, that we should be supplying schools with what they need no matter how good they're doing, honestly.
What are your views on the voucher system? Because that has ripped IPS completely apart. I believe you are running for Warren Township area as well, and it's ripping Warren Township schools apart.
I don't like them. I feel like the voucher system is, at least with how it's being utilized right now, entirely antithetical to what we stand for as a nation, especially since I don't have specific numbers, but most of the vouchers seem to be used for religious schools, and that is appalling. That is in direct opposition to what the Constitution guides us on. I feel like it's nothing more than a blatant grab to at the Constitution, because we as a nation shouldn't be supporting these types of education because it's uneven.
When folks drive through this district, they see the roads, they see the transportation gaps, and they feel the digital divide. What infrastructure priorities would you move on first? Roads, transit, broadband, and why?
Well, this was the question I really had to percolate on, because the leadership in this state does not like transit. That is a fact. They hate Indigo with a burning passion, and they would see fit to do nothing but throw out the entire thing. And while a single lawmaker can work miracles in their own right, it is very difficult to turn the tide of an opinion that is so deeply held within the opposition party that still currently holds most of the seats in office. So while I would like to focus on transit most, I feel like I would be split on broadband and the roads, mainly just because I've always felt that broadband should be, at this point in time, a essential utility that should be supplied to every household regardless, because you can't live without the internet anymore. That's just a sad fact about it, because you can't apply for jobs without internet anymore. You can't respond to emails. It's getting to the point that everything is being centralized online, and it must be rolled out as a utility at some point in the future. And the roads. You know how bad the roads are.
Drive down Washington Street, the main street of Indianapolis, and you see the rail and the bricks from the old trolley system
Yeah.
from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah.
There are many places within the district and without where you can plainly see the brick that was there before, and of course trolley rails and all sorts of other things, which is it's insanity. Especially, this isn't pertaining to the district, but I'm sure you're aware of the road from Ohio. I think on 65 coming into Indiana. It is a roller coaster of potholes, and it's been under construction at least since I was a kid. I remember those orange barrels being there almost since the day I was born, which is an absolute travesty. The fact that we have, like I said, a GDP in the billions, and we can't keep our roads straight. I mean, I've known people, I've had people come in from out of state, and they can only comment on how bad the roads are. Some of the roads are basically undrivable, and we were pushing for a little bit to get some of those roads repaired. I want to say a year or two ago, but that seems to have stalled out, and that is an absolute must on my agenda if I do make it in the office. I'm going to work tirelessly to make sure our roads can be fixed, because the sorry state it's in is inexcusable.
I mean, if you think about it, our motto is the crossroads of America. And I mean, heck, my hat shows the crossroads. I mean, yeah, it's the Indians, but still, it's a crossroads. Yeah, like you said, driving in from Ohio on 70. You're going perfect roads, and then all of a sudden it's kind of a roller coaster there for a little bit. Um, I mean, I live in rural Morgan County now, and our road is chip and seal. I mean, it's not even paved anymore, it's just chip and seal. So they've done that to a lot of these county roads out here. And driving from when I don't use 69 to get from Martinsville to Indianapolis, when I use back roads, which I hardly ever do now. 69 is a godsend for us down here. I mean, the chip and seal is going into Franklin Township. So, I mean, and even rural Indianapolis getting it as well.
And that's the thing about road infrastructure is, yes, it's expensive in order to actually properly fix the roads that need to be fixed, because some of these roads need to be torn down to the roots and repaved entirely, essentially. But it's we wouldn't be in such a sorry situation if we just fixed the roads when they needed to be fixed. Because if you do it right the first time, it costs a lot less in the long term, because all these chip and seals do just it's a band-aid solution, and inevitably in the winter when the snow plows pull all these plugs out, I mean, Heck, I mean, I was driving down a major road to get to work one day several years ago. In the middle of the road, there was a pothole. It had to be the size of, it was maybe 4 feet across. I couldn't see it because it was raining, and my car is still has never been the same since. And the fact that we can allow that on our major roads is patently insane.
Your district, like many others, sees the connection between mental health gaps and homelessness. What's your approach to the expanding mental health access and addressing homelessness with dignity and effectiveness?
This is actually a subject that's this is actually a subject that's very near and dear to my heart because I actually ran on this last year and I'm going to run on this again. And I've taken time to actually try and figure out a solution to this problem. And it's multi-threaded here. It's part of the homelessness problem is that the unfortunate truth is that some people are homeless because they're so mentally ill that they just cannot they have compunctions that don't allow them to seek treatment. And what we really need to do is we need to destigmatize the idea of getting help. And we need to open our arms to our homeless because we are only as strong as our weakest links. And the fact that we treat our homeless as importantly as we do is insanity also. So what I was thinking is that um we should use the FSSA as the social program um holder as it is, and essentially open up an office that's just dedicated to um receiving people coming in off the streets and setting them up with the tools for success. Because if we don't, then we're simply just not going to fix it. Because some people think homelessness is a situation where, oh, we can just buy people a house or set them up in an apartment and that'll be it, fixed. But however, it is not that easy. There are three types of homeless, in my opinion. There are functional homeless, there are mental health homeless, and there are criminal homeless. What we need to do is that we need to give those that are already functional the leg up that they need in order to get back on their feet. Because some of these people um, just had a run of bad luck and essentially just need a little oomph to get them back to where they need to go. So if they need, say, I need a place to stay for a month or two so I can save up enough to get back into my own apartment. Like, because you can have a job and still be homeless. So if we can get rents down and if we can build more apartments that are accessible, then we can say, okay, we'll set you up in this place for a couple of months so you can save up your paychecks and maybe we'll ask for a little bit in return at the end of it, but after that, we want you to see you on your way as a functional member of society. And then, if they're homeless and they don't have clothes, well, we should have a program that can help afford them interview clothes because these people don't need suits and ties; they need clean, presentable looking clothes. The longer you're out on the streets, the less of a chance you're going to have of ever looking presentable again. Because if you can't afford housing, then you probably can't afford soap sometimes. Obviously, you're trying to save up for the essentials like food and water. So um, we should be helping in the little ways that we can, essentially, to help get these people back on their feet. And then we need to be more ready to help get those that can't help themselves the help they need. And mental health is a very touchy subject when it comes to the homeless because some people say, "Oh, we need to round them up and we need to get them into these asylums, essentially." And maybe that's not what we need to do. We really just need to incentivize them to come in on their own terms or to maybe like if the police were a little bit more tactful, maybe if they saw a homeless person that was maybe not in their rightest of minds, maybe they could gently encourage them like, "Hey, we can help you. We promise," like, or something to that nature. And of course, I mean, drug use is rampant among the homeless, and that's also very stigmatized, very, very stigmatized. And I'm not sure if I'm all for the most radical um approaches to that problem, which is like um, where it is in, I think, Washington or Oregon, and it's like giving them a place to shoot up. I'm not I understand the rationale behind it. I don't think I'm really that far. I think it really just comes down to the fact that we need to destigmatize things in general, and we need to allow them to come to us. And also, when it comes to mental health, I was thinking about this very hard. And there are people very near and dear to my heart that struggle with their mental health, and they either don't seek treatment or they have, and they have had a very bad time because they don't get treated well. The people that are mentally ill are very shackled when it comes to mental health because they can get put in a 72-hour hold, and then suddenly everything they say is not listened to. They lose agency, which is something unforgivable. So what I think we need to do is we as a state should come together and essentially create a mental health bill of rights that would preserve your um, that will preserve your humanity in the worst circumstances and allow for due justice when you have been wrongfully taken. Like say when you know you're not in as bad of a situation anymore and you feel more in your right mind, you should be able to say that and have people believe you. Because even if you are mentally ill and even if you're having problems with with your with yourself and everything, you should still be taken seriously, and you should still be treated like a real, responsible adult and a citizen of the United States that has constitutional rights. Because oftentimes, when you submit to mental health, those rights go right out the window, and it's scary. Because if you're on the inside, you have to have someone on the outside um, what's the word? Rooting for you. You have to have someone on the outside that's working in your stead. And if you're homeless, you probably don't have that. And if you don't have that, what are you gonna do? Which makes the whole thing of getting care even scarier because then you could disappear into the system essentially, and you'd have no recourse, locked in a room somewhere essentially, and having no good ears. So along with the mental health bill of rights, which if I was elected, I would champion every single day. I would work to the fullest for this because it's very near and dear to my heart. But I also think that um these we should have compliance enforcement for this mental health bill of rights in mental health care so that the facilities don't have a chance to work in the worst interest of their patients, essentially. I'm very passionate about that one.
Hoosiers work hard for their paycheck. How will you make sure taxpayer dollars actually benefit families in your district, not special interest or politically connected insiders?
Well, in my opinion, transparency is the best option here. The public should know exactly where their tax money is going every step of the way. If you give the government a dollar, you should be able to track that dollar from when it gets taken out of your paycheck to when it's applied to a service. So, for instance, say so much of your paycheck comes out and you want to know what you're paying for. We should create a tool essentially and legislation overall that dictates such where you can track what your money is going to. And if elected, I, as an elected representative, and I would hope my colleagues would do this as well, I would want to be as transparent as possible. And as such, I would hold monthly town halls that strictly are just about the finances. I know it's pretty boring and probably wouldn't be well attended, but the option is there. And um, of course, like I would want the money to go exactly where it needs to go and not special interest groups. I would be very transparent about that, and I would I thought about the possibility of publishing numbers through my office and through its website and any portals or web portals we can create to show as such because it's very imperative that we know where our money is going as taxpayers. Even the legislators themselves have incentive to do this because it's not like they're exempt from taxes. Like they and the state is a very complex thing. There are many things that we are paying for. Worked in as I've been an accountant for the state for just over 4 years now. I've seen plenty of directions our money has gone, and I would want my fellow lawmakers and I would want my fellow constituents to know exactly where it's going. I feel like it's a moral imperative, and the fact that we're not more transparent about right now is a sacrilege, honestly.
That goes into the next question. You ran against a powerful incumbent, a party whip. That tells voters you care about accountability. How will you keep state government transparent and responsive to everyday Hoosiers?
Well, as I said before, I'd want to hold really town halls and meet and greets, or not really meet and greets, but I'd want to interface with the public as much as I could as a representative. I As much as my schedule would allow, at least I would make it is in monthly town halls, and I feel like I would probably get a newsletter going of things that are going on and whatnot to keep people informed. And I thought it would be a good idea to have an open door policy. That way, if someone has a problem or if someone has a question about something that they're passionate about when it comes to government, they can come straight to me, and I would love that. I would love to hear what people think. I love having data, and there's no better data than having it direct out people's mouths. So, and I will say, no, no barbs against my opponent, but it's not exactly easy to contact Justin Moed, at least as a representative. There's like a contact form on his website, and that's about it. I couldn't find a phone number for his office, at least on a cursory search, and I couldn't find a direct email either. So, I mean, which I'm sure they exist, and I'm sure I probably just didn't look as hard as I probably should have been for them, but I feel like you should have that contact info front and center. You should not, there should be a big banner on your website or your representative profile that that says exactly in no uncertain terms how to contact you via the fastest way possible. With me, transparency is all about the lawmakers seeing their constituents. They need to hear directly from them more often than not. That way, you shouldn't be able to hide from your constituents, especially if you're not working in their favor. Because if you're representing them, they should know what you're on about essentially. And I would encourage my fellow lawmakers to do the same. Of course, there's only so much you can do per person. This is how I feel. Um, I imagine my fellow colleagues have their own opinions about that.
So, big picture time. If voters trust you with this seat, what is your long term vision for District 97? What does success look like in 5, 10 years down the road? And how will you measure progress?
Overall, I envision a cleaner, more repaired, safer, and more happier district overall. I envision a district where people inside and outside the city don't have to worry about affording groceries. I envision the district where we all have equal footing essentially. And just because you live in the outer reaches of the district doesn't mean you're forgotten, essentially. I want to make sure that all my constituents' voices are heard, every single one. I don't care if I have to go around and knock on every single door myself. I'll do it. I want to know, and I want to know how they're doing. And that's something I would happily use as a yardstick. I would maybe potentially like do a survey every so often and see how people are doing, gather information, work on the issues that the constituents are most worried about, because I can have my own agenda all day, but what really matters is what the voters want, and it's what the individuals want, it's what the families want, and it's what the parents need for their kids, and it's what their kids need to thrive in schools. And I envision a better district than it is now. Not to say that Justin Miller has done a bad job. I'm not saying that, but I I think we can do better.
All right, Sarah. Now you know how we do things around here. We've talked about policy. We've talked about vision. We've talked about real change could look like on the ground in District 97. But this show isn't just about long answers and big ideas. It's also about clarity. It's about where you stand when the rubber meets the road. So we're moving to a little segment we call Hold 'em or Fold 'em. Here's how it works. I'm going to throw out a series of issues, principles, and political realities. If it's something you support, believe in, and you're willing to stand on, you say hold 'em. If it's something you think Indiana needs to move past, policies, practices, or power structures, you say fold 'em. No filibusters, no fence sitting, just instincts and values. Sound good?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's deal the cards. Hold 'em and fold 'em starts now. Expanding affordable housing options across Indianapolis.
Hold 'em.
Raising the minimum wage to keep up with the cost of living.
Hold 'em.
Increasing funding for public schools instead of private vouchers.
Definitely hold 'em.
Legalizing marijuana and taxing it to fund community programs.
Oh, yeah, hold 'em. We've been way past that.
Creating a statewide mental health crisis response team.
Hold 'em.
Placing limits on corporate PAC money in Indiana politics.
Hold 'em.
Expanding public transportation in Indianapolis neighborhoods.
Hold 'em. Oh, that's gonna be a
Str-
tough one.
Strengthening renter protections against unfair evictions.
Definitely hold 'em.
Implementing independent redistricting to end gerrymandering.
Hold 'em.
Requiring lawmakers to disclose all financial ties and conflicts of interest.
Hold 'em.
Sarah, thank you for joining me tonight. Look, politics isn't supposed to be comfortable for the people in power. It's supposed to be accountable to the people they serve. And when someone steps up, not because it's easy, but because it's their turn, but because they believe their community deserves more, we owe that a real conversation. District 97 is home to families who get up early, stay up late, do the work that keeps Indianapolis moving. They're not asking for miracles, just fairness, opportunity, and a government that sees them and shows up for them. Elections aren't coronations. No one owns a seat. Voters do. And whether you're an underdog challenger or a longtime incumbent, the job title isn't politician. The job title is public servant. Tonight wasn't about party hierarchy. It wasn't about insider titles or who's been in the building the longest. It was about people, renters, homeowners, teachers, small business owners, parents, and neighbors, asking the most American question you can ask. What will you do for us? And to everyone watching, remember this: democracy is not a spectator sport. If you want better representation, better neighborhoods, better outcomes, it starts with paying attention, asking questions, showing up when it counts. So, Sarah, thank you for showing up here. Thank you for showing up for your district. And thank you for stepping into the arena when it would have been easier just to stay quiet. Whether folks, that takes courage. And courage in public life, we need more of it. To the people of District 97 and to Hoosiers everywhere, keep holding your leaders accountable. Demand the truth, demand solutions, and don't ever apologize for expecting better. We rise together when we expect more and when we refuse to fold on our future. Thank you for watching. I'm Derrick Holder, and this is Hold 'em Accountable. See you next time.